I get this question an awful lot. NPP, nandrolone phenylpropionate. It's like DECA's little sister. Doesn't last quite as long, but does it do the same thing? And should women be taking it? Stay tuned. I'll let you know.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, this is your forum to ask Dave whatever is on your mind. We're going to go right into the questions. First two questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Can NPP be used for women instead of Primo? If they don't sell Primo, also, would you combine NPP with something else? If yes, what compounds and at what dosages?
I've been doing this a long time, and I've worked with a lot of women over the years. And to me, every time I see most women, start using anabolics, Anavar seems to be the safest. There seems to be very little side effects. Every once in a while, I have a woman who complains that maybe her voice is getting a little raspy, and we usually stop it. And it goes away. Very few people have that issue. Anavar seems to be very safe. Even Winstrol in small dosages and in the right dosages seems to not really have too much of a negative effect, probably because it's very short acting. But the longer acting compounds like Primo can sometimes cause a problem because they last in your system a long time. Primo is actually Primabol and enanthate, which if you know anything about enanthate ester, it lasts a long time. Most people don't have a lot of problems with Primo, but a lot of times, especially in today's day and age, the Primos are a lot of times fake, and a lot of times it's test propionate. And that's why, I always recommend that people buy these Rhode test kits that I sell at davepalumbo.com, because for $20, you can kind of figure out if your stuff is real, especially if you're a woman, you don't want to mess yourself up. But then we start getting into that like dangerous territory where they're like, all right, well, what else can I use aside from Anavar, Winstrol, and Primabone? The right answer is nothing. Okay, there's nothing else that's side effect free or low side effects. Everything else has a risk with it. Now, some women, I know a lot of women who take stuff they shouldn't be taking, and they really don't have that many side effects from it. In terms of their voice doesn't change, their hair is fine. They might have to pick a few extra hairs off their face, and they might get a little bit of breakout, but they don't have that. But then other women get tremendous side effects. DECA, the long acting one, is very, very bad for women. I know women like to take it because your joints feel really good on it, but there are a lot of side effects, and most women's voices get deep on DECA. Nandrolone is the same drug, okay? It's just attached to a different ester. The ester is what determines how long it's in your system. Now, while NPP is in your system a shorter period of time because of that phenylpropionate ester, it's still nandrolone, and so you're going to still get similar side effects. And I personally wouldn't risk it if I was a woman. Primabone is a lot safer than nandrolone phenylpropionate. And so I have to give you the right answer. I would say do not use it if you're a woman. If you don't give a crap about side effects, then you can use it. You can use pretty much anything at that point if you don't care. But if you're trying to remain as feminine as possible, NPP is not a good decision.
Second question, again, these first two from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. When dieting for a contest, since we're starving all the time, good one here, species-related question. Of course, we didn't plant this. We didn't. Seriously, I swear, we didn't plant this. We don't do those kind of things. Would it be more beneficial to use protolyze instead of isolyze, since the absorption is slower and we could feel satisfied longer?
Protolyze is probably one of our best known products and best loved products that most people don't even know about. Protolyze is a time-release protein pudding that we make. It's 30 grams per serving. It's a bigger scooper size than the isolyze is. And it's about 90% isolate and it's about 10% casein protein. The casein's in there not particularly for any reason other than to thicken it up. So casein thickens, makes the protein thicker, whereas isolate is a little more watery. So if you're trying to make a pudding, you want to get that pudding consistency. We use casein to do that. And it gives it a much nicer mouthfeel. So if you put 2 ounces of water in with 1 scoop of the protolyze, you got 30 grams of protein, minimal fat, minimal carbs, and it tastes really good. It's a good treat at night. And we have 7 strains of actually shelf-stable probiotics in there too, so they don't have to be refrigerated. These probiotics are great for your gut health, and it's really a good treat. I eat it every night before bed, and I think a lot of the competitors do that as well. It can be used. It's not quite as quote clean as isolyze, because isolyze is nothing in it. It's just 28 grams of protein per 33 gram scoop size, and you're getting nothing else in there with it. I think a lot of people like to use it because it's like the purest whey isolate on the market. We have a lot of different flavors, but the protolyze, because it has that nice taste. And I know a lot of people who mix some protolyze, some isolyze to change the flavor of the protolyze. And once again, it's a great product to use at night, and you can use it, and it is time release. But most of my clients, at least that I work with, they do a scoop of whey isolate or 2 scoops of whey isolate, they're usually mixing it with something like an all natural peanut butter or macadamia nut oil, something that's going to give it a fuel source anyway, which is going to, fats, as we know, slow the transit of proteins through the gut. So it's kind of doing the same thing that the casein would do, slow down the protein. But some people just want to have just that protein right before bed. And that's a great option to go with the protolyze, because you don't have to add anything to it. It's going to make it time released. Once again, it's just protein. There's nothing else in there, but that might be what you want. A lot of people, they have their 6 meals during the day. They have a long day. They want something right before bed that's a little sweet. They can sit while watching TV at night, and it's to take the edge off, and it's going to help them sleep better. And it's a great treat. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'll make one of those and just scoff it down and go back to sleep. So you can check that out at speciesnutrition.com. And like I said, it's one of our best-selling products. I'm pretty proud of it, especially the new version that recently came out with the probiotics in there, because everyone is concerned about gut health these days.
Before we go to the rest of our questions, our friends over at Titan Medical Center have their weekly sale, Titan Summer Cut Package. And you see the 3 options laid out in front of you: the Ignite Package, the Titan Package, and the Elite Summer Cut Package. These are all discounted, $300, $450, and the Elite Package, a super special deal of $1,100, now available at TitanMedicalCenter.com.
The Elite package is pretty interesting, because if you look at it, it's retatrutide, which is the triple GLP-1 agonist, drug that everyone's on now. It seems, at least everyone that's dieting is on in Hollywood, in regular life. And I think there's probably less people not taking retatrutide than are taking retatrutide at this point in time. And you're also getting the ECA stack, which a lot of people haven't. A lot of people probably didn't try it, but back in the 90s, everyone was taking ephedra, caffeine, and aspirin, which is it's like a great fat burning stack. And you can't get ephedra legally anymore in the sense you can walk into a health food store and buy it. It just doesn't exist anymore. And you can barely get it in a drugstore anymore, because they think that people are going to take it and make meth out of it. So this is by prescription, so you can get it. And it's the only place you could really get it. And a lot of people, this is one of their favorites. So even if you're not really that concerned about burning fat, ephedra really wakes you up. And again, a lot of people, I know Greg Valentino loves ephedra, and it really keeps him. He probably needs it because he's probably ADHD, but it definitely helps him a lot. So this is a great stack, along with some of the other peptides that are in there as well. Sloop is in there as well. So if you can afford it, the Elite stack seems to have everything you can possibly want. The other stacks are also greatly discounted. When you contact TitanMedicalCenter.com, tell them Dave Palumbo and RX Muscle sent you. You're going to get a great discount. And this is a great opportunity. I know that they're doing this for the summer. This is not the typical prices you're going to see from them. So check it out. Now, I also want to just tell you, thank you guys for supporting the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Those first 2 questions were from the app. I answer everyone's questions in an open forum on that app. So everyone sees everyone's questions and answers. All my videos I've ever done, all my writings are in there. All my diets are in there, the keto diet, the cyclical keto diet, the off-season diet, my steroid cycles are in there as well. It's a great resource and library of all the stuff that I've compounded over the years. And the good thing is it's constantly growing and evolving. And every week I do a Q&A video exclusively for the app members, so you get an additional Ask Dave in that app as well. So it's a ton of information for $29 a month. Download it from your Android store or your app store on your iPhone. And once again, thank you guys for the support all these years.
Let's go to our questions from our YouTube community page. Again, if you go on our YouTube page, on the post page, that's where you'll be able to ask the primary source of questions. That's where we take, that is our primary source of questions for this show. Huge fan, women's physique competitor. I'll be undergoing rotator cuff surgery and buy some tendon repair in about a week. I will not be able to train upper body. My surgeon says for at least 3 to 4 months this year. It was my third attempt for a national level show for a pro card. We will see how I progress, if I'll be able to do the show. Can you give me some suggestions on a hard lower body training routine to do, as I will be limited in terms of lifting? Was thinking about 4 to 5 times a week of lower body.
Yeah, that's probably not it's probably not a good idea. I would recommend training your lower body twice a week, every 3 days. I think that's adequate. I think you can go to the gym and you can do some cardio, a few days a week, so that it gives you something to do. Because I understand, the insanity that goes on in the brain if we can't exercise, So at least you could get that nice endorphin rush going, through doing your cardio. But I would not train my legs more than twice a week. You're going to overtrain them, invariably. Then they're going to look worse, and then you're going to be unhappy. And you don't want to overrun your body. In other words, you want your body to have some resources left to repair the surgery you're getting done. Remember, just because you're not training your upper body doesn't mean that it's not healing. It's healing from the surgery. See, if you're overtraining your body in the gym, you're taking away resources that your body could be using for the surgical repair. I also want to say that it's nice that we have some female viewers on this show, and that they're paying attention and they're learning a lot from what's going on. I thought the question originally said was going to be, what should I take to help facilitate the healing of my surgery? Which, in case I was going to respond, we just talked about Titan Medical Center. You can contact them and get some BPC 157, 200 to 400 micrograms a day. Right into that shoulder area would be helpful. Or you can do the Glow Stack, which is the BPC 157, TB 500, KPV, which is an anti-inflammatory peptide, and then of course the copper peptide. So that's 4 in 1. That'll also help. I would do that maybe every other day. I would do Arthrolyze, which is our Species Nutrition joint repair product. I would do 5 pills twice a day, which is going to give you 4 grams of glucosamine, 4 grams of MSM, chondroitin sulfate, and the right mineral mix, as well as UC2 collagen. That's going to greatly, greatly help the healing of that area as well. And I would also always increase my vitamin C to 3,000 milligrams per day. That's going to also, collagen production is made from using vitamin C, and that's important as well. So if you do that religiously and don't overtrain in the gym, I think you're going to heal at optimal rates. And I think you will be back in the gym, and you will be back on that stage a lot quicker than you think.
You know what? We do get this question fairly often, but it's a good one, and it's a good one as far as a refresher is concerned. Can you break down the science of the pump, and if it does or does not play a role in hypertrophy?
I don't know if it plays a role in hypertrophy as much as it does. I think what Arnold was referring when he said the pump is what makes you grow is that when you get blood in that muscle, okay, and you contract that muscle, you can feel the muscle working, okay, and I'll tell you how. I'll give you even a better story or a visual image in your mind. Remember when you first started working out? You can do 100 sets of bicep curls. You almost didn't feel anything in your arms because there wasn't that much muscle there. And then now that you're bigger, you go to the gym, you could do 1 set of like bicep curls, and you're so pumped you don't even want to do anymore. It's the same thing. The pump allows you to have that mind muscle connection that's even better. So the more blood in the muscle, the bigger the muscle is, the better you're able to engage that muscle, and ultimately that will lead to muscle growth. So the pump has something to do with it, but it's really more of a mind muscle connection, and so that it allows you to engage and the most muscle fibers, recruit the most muscle fibers as possible when you're training a particular muscle. When you're bench pressing your pec muscles, if you can engage the most amount of pec muscle because you have a good pump in the chest, because you're glycogen loaded, there's a lot of blood in your body, and you're fully hydrated, you're going to feel that muscle contract. You're going to be stronger in the gym. You're going to break down more fibers, and ultimately you're going to get bigger. So the pump is indirectly related to how you grow. It's more of, like I said, like an accessory type thing that helps you to focus down on what you are actually training. If you notice, when you're dieting and you're depleted and you're glycogen depleted and you can't really get a great pump in the gym, you feel like your workouts are not as productive, and they probably aren't, because you're working on very little nutrition. You're basically in starvation mode, right? And you don't have much of a mind muscle connection to the muscle because the glycogen stores are so low and the hydration level is lower. So it all makes sense, but does the pump actually build the muscle? No, but it's part of the process.
You know, we do get questions on the show from members of our audience that are, say, 50 and older, and they always have questions as far as, you know, the viability of them still being able to build muscle, to, you know, build a stage-worthy physique. I'm 58 years old, male. Is it still possible to build muscle mass? I've been working out hard for the last 5 years without much improvement. My diet is fairly stringent, and I am consistent in the gym. There's so much information about routines, etc. It's overwhelming at times. So he wants to know, as far as, like, I guess, your advice for him, an older bodybuilder, and if it's still possible to build muscle mass at the age of 58.
Right. Well, I'm the same age, so we're not that old. But, you know, I don't know where you're coming from. He didn't mention if he's on a cycle or anything like that. Usually when people have hit stagnation points, okay, in working out, where they're not really making progress, there's a couple of pitfalls that they could be making. Usually it's a diet related thing. You know, usually they're just not eating enough food, or they're not eating consistently enough, or they're not eating enough protein enough times a day. You know, I talk to these people, they're like, I eat great, I eat perfect. And they lay their diet out, and it is perfect, but they're only eating 3 times a day. I said, you could eat like 5 or 6 times a day if you want to push, if your body's going to grow, because you got to be consuming protein every 2 to 3 hours. And a lot of people don't know that, especially older people who maybe weren't in the sport earlier. Likewise, I see some people, they eat perfectly, they take the drugs, and then when I have them send me video of how they train, and I realize they're doing partial reps, and they're not using any free weights, they're using all machines, and they're not even doing the full range, they're not using the machines properly, I realize it's a training issue. And, you know, you can fix the training issue, you know, if you can, you know, get in the gym with them, or you can at least, you know, maybe articulate watching the videos what they're doing wrong. A lot of times it's just they're not controlling the negative. They're not doing full range of motion. And if you train crappy, you're not going to grow, you know, and respond. You know, the problem is people see like Ronnie training and Branch training, where they had that kind of ballistic, you know, movement. And they felt the rhythm of that. There was something to that. But most people, if they do that, they're not going to get results. You know, you got to train like you have perfect, impeccable form. You know, lower the weight under control, squeeze on the way up. You know, proper form, full range of motion. You know, and that's a lot of times in older people that I've noticed, that's a problem. Usually, also eating is a problem, because older people are just not as hungry. I don't know why, but maybe they think it's health. It's better. Probably is better for their health not to eat as much food, but but if you want to get big, you got to eat. I know that I could, you know, get bigger or smaller based on how much food I eat. So if I'm eating 4 or 5 times a day now, if I went to, you know, 5 or 6 consistent meals a day, I would put on probably 10 pounds. Now, I don't want to gain 10, 15 pounds, because when I get a little bigger, my blood pressure goes up a little bit. When I'm at around 205 to 210, my blood pressure is perfect. So, you know, it depends on what you're looking to do. This person looks like they're looking to improve. You know, revisit your diet and then revisit your training and see. And some people actually train well, but they overtrain. They're training 7 days a week. They don't take a day off, or they train 6 days a week and they do cardio 7 days a week. And I'm like, you're not even dieting. What are you doing so much cardio for? So there's a lot of variables that, as someone, if I'm doing a consult with someone, I would be asking them these questions, and I would be going over this with them on the phone, and I would figure out what they were doing wrong.
I took 100 mg of Winstrol for 3 weeks, and my joints felt horrible. I'm on 600 mg of Test-Sip, 100 mg of Tren at 6'3", 245 pounds, hoping or that I could return my hormones as it tanked my estrogen.
Yeah, I don't think that. Look, I've said this before. I don't think Winstrol does this. I think people read this online that Winstrol messes up, makes your joints ache. And I just don't buy it. Never did it to me. The only time that most people feel joint, discomfort is around contest time, because they're so dehydrated already, and they're walking around so lean that the joints are just, they're vulnerable anyway. And most people don't take Winstrol in an off-season scenario. I have women that take Winstrol, to grow in the off-season. I've never heard one woman complain to me that their joints hurt from it. So there's really no mechanism that would make it do that. They think it dries out. What does dries out your joints mean? Does it get rid of the synovial fluid? How does it do that? What mechanism? There is none. Okay, and Winstrol doesn't tank your estrogen. It doesn't do anything to your estrogen. It doesn't have any estrogenic blocking properties. If you told me that Masteron might have lowered your estrogen too much, I say, yeah, well, that we know it blocks estrogen receptors. So the whole Winstrol thing is I think, a lot of people, they think it's going to do that, and then it winds up doing that, or they're very close to contest time and they take Winstrol and they're like, oh shit, people are right. Look at my joints well, your joints probably would have hurt anyway. Is it possible that some people are a little sensitive or maybe allergic to Winstrol, and that's causing that? I guess that's a possibility, but physiologically doesn't make sense why Winstrol would be doing that. And I haven't seen, I've worked with a lot of people who are on Winstrol, and very, very few people have ever complained to me. And usually it's the people who said, I read it online somewhere. And as soon as I dismiss it and say that's not true, I never hear them complain again. So could I be wrong? Maybe, but I don't think I
am. We recently talked about gear shortages. Well, this may actually be more alarming, and this could be a protein shortage. A recent article asserts that a protein shortage in the United States is imminent. I know better than to take the word of mainstream media, quote unquote mainstream media, at face value. So I ask you, as an insider in this industry, is this true that there is a protein shortage on the horizon?
I don't know if it's on the horizon. I think the problem with getting whey protein these days is that there are so many big companies like Starbucks, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts now. They all use protein. They use protein in their drinks, and they want to be able to say high protein. That's the new in vogue thing to help you sell stuff. And who do you think has more buying power? McDonald's or Dave Palumbo? It's not even close, right? So same thing with Starbucks and Hershey's. Hershey's is putting protein in their chocolate. So that's what the problem is. So you're buying against these mega giants. So what happens is there's not enough whey protein around, and so now the people who sell the whey protein can charge a premium for it because the demand is higher than the supply is. You never want, as a producer or as a supplement company, you never want the demand to be higher than the supply, because everyone's going to pay, and the customer shouldn't want that either, because it's going to be more expensive to the customer, because it's more expensive to me, and it's more expensive to the the people who are buying it from the dairy farmers. So it's I don't know if it's going to get worse. I hope it doesn't, but I've been equating the price of whey protein to the price of gas, essentially. Gas goes up, and whey protein goes up, and once in a while it takes a little drop down, but it never goes back down to what it was. And my price on whey protein today is more than double when I first started doing this about 12 years ago. When I had my own company, that's pretty significant that it's more than doubled. And I don't think it's going back to what it was. that's just the price now. And it's because too many people want it. And when a lot of people want it, and if you ever did economics in school, supply is up. And I mean, excuse me, when the price is the supply is down and demand is up, the prices go up.
Question about melanotan and Big Lenny. There you go. The darkest you've ever seen someone get on melanotan. Is Big Lenny the melanotan results GOAT? Is it possible to be a, quote, hyper responder to melanotan?
There are 3 people that come to mind who have taken so much melanotan that they turn purple. And one of them is Dom Cardone. I told him at the Olympia, I think it was like 2 years ago. I said, Dom, you're purple. I said, you're taking too much melanotan. He's like, how did you know I was taking melanotan? I said, because you're purple. Your lips are purple. I said, you got to, once you get to the color you want, you got to come back because it makes everything darker. Even the things that shouldn't be, like your lips shouldn't be, colored. So that's one thing. The second person is the algebra wizard, Mike Zeltzer, who loves when I mention him, by the way. So he was purple at one of the Olympics probably about 5 years ago. And I told him he was purple and he cut it back a little bit. And Big Lenny was purple. So those are my three Barney the dinosaur melanotan examples. Don't overdo it. Once you get to the color you want, you do it once a week to maintain it. That's it. Because more is not better. Because it starts dyeing everything and it just doesn't look as good. It starts looking fake. When you do it a little bit and you get the nice color, it looks great. But if you go too dark, like I said, you start getting like a purpley bluish look to it.
Question about nitric oxide. Is there any advantage of taking beet chews to help with nitric oxide?
Beetroot extract and anything that, all these different companies that sell beetroot extract now. And I think they talk about chews. Is that what he said? Beetroot chews or something like that?
Yeah, chews. Yeah.
They put them into gummies and stuff like that. It works. If you ever go buy a beet in the supermarket and juice it. I've told this story before. I used to was into juicing vegetables for a while, not like steroid juicing, really juicing, putting them in a juicer. And I did like a whole beet before bed one time, and I couldn't fall asleep because of it. I was so wired, and I had veins coming out of my head. It's a very strong vasodilator. It's one of the products or ingredients that a lot of people put in their pre-workouts, and it's good for, I guess, vascular circulation and dilating stuff. I don't know if it stops working because I think it doesn't really. There's nothing to really stop it from working. Sometimes if you take too much like arginine, you run out of that enzyme that converts it to nitric oxide. But I don't know if that happens with beetroot extract. I don't think there's anything negative about it. I think it's a healthy thing. But sometimes it could turn you like a little red or make you a little too vascular. But I don't know if it necessarily is quote good for you or if it's going to improve your health. But it seems reasonable that if it increases, vascular supply and the opening of the blood vessels, that your blood circulation would be better on it. So, yes.
Take one more question. I'm on week 14 of a cut. Fast loss has slowed, 500 T, 375 EQ. Just added 200 Tren for the last 8 weeks, 2,000 calories a day, 250 P, 150 C, 50 F macros. So I guess 250 protein, 150 carbs, 50 fat macros. 35-minute cardio, 80 mcg clen. HGH is coming in this week. How should I structure the HGH dose to end this fat loss phase? About 10 to 12 weeks to go. Blood work came back good. I can push the cut longer. He's dieting for a 10-year anniversary of Shred's vacation. He is 38 years old.
Yeah. My recommendation is never do blood work in the middle of one of these things. There's nothing good that can come of it. First of all, it's not going to tell you anything. So you don't really. Most people don't come back in the well on the blood work. But I'm glad everything is copacetic. I would use like 2 to 3 IUs, every morning when you wake up. If you're going to do cardio in the morning, I would do it after you do your cardio. I would take the shot, and I think that that'll help a little bit with fat loss and recovery, and give you a better pump and everything like that. So I think that's reasonable. I don't think more is going to. I think more is going to make you a little bloated, and might give you those tingly, hands that feel like they're asleep all the time. 2 to 3 IUs is usually what we use in a fat loss situation.
And that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now on the channel, all new episode of the After Hours podcast of Heavy Muscle Radio. And as well, we have content from this past weekend's Pittsburgh Pro as well as last weekend's New York Pro on the channel. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss this or any other content that we have on the channel. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.